rhythm in writing and in reading as well, and I think both of those things helped me shape the story, because this was originally only ever going to be heard as an audiobook, so the whole kind of beginning of this was about what it was going to sound like rather than what it was going to look like on the page. But I think I've realised over the years that I think in cinematic terms. You know, you're only ever inside your own head, so you don't know how other people learn or receive story. But yeah, I think I've always been a visual learner, and yeah, I saw the movie of this and then wrote it down.
Well, just the opening, my mic is louder than your mic. I feel like, is yours on? Yeah. One of the things that I love about the book is it harkens back to an era of techno thrillers from the 70s, aging myself a little bit, with my first thought was it's a little bit Robin Cook and it's a little bit Michael Crichton without the hard science fiction, but kind of a 5 minutes from now science fiction. And there is something about characters like in the 70s we would call them the Lady Doctor in Danger kind of thrillers, and this falls into that trope that's very Coma, very Jean-Vieux Bujold. And did those movies, that's kind of 70s paranoid thriller, was that always your intention?
Yes, when you mentioned Coma, I immediately got a kind of physical reaction. I guess I'd seen it as quite a young kid, but it terrified me. Michael Crichton is somebody that I've read as well as obviously seen, but that toes on the line of science fiction, which is close enough to touch. They're the rabbit holes that I really enjoyed falling down. But at the time that the story was being conceived in my head, we were sort of coming to the end of the pandemic, and I was watching a lot of male politicians sort of stumbling their way through misinformation. And there was a scientist called Sarah Gilbert who was fronting the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine program in the UK, and I got really fascinated with taking her story and making a drama about it. But what I did was use her as a foundation for somebody with an incredible intellect who you put them onto thin ice and they start to doubt their own mind. So I guess yes in terms of the science fiction becoming science fact, but going further back to the 50s, I'd actually seen a film as a kid that I couldn't remember the name of, and I had to sort of type in this very long paragraph of the thing that frightened me about it. And it was a film with Gene Simmons called So Long at the Fair. And it basically is about this gaslit relationship with a woman who checks into a hotel, and they convince her that she was here on her own as she turned up with her brother. So that idea of somebody not being able to trust their own mind, I find terrifying. So yeah, it was a big seed of inspiration for the story, for sure.
Yeah, perception and point of view play a big factor in how you tell this story, and having an unreliable narrator as your protagonist is really exciting territory as a storyteller. Can you talk about just the idea of how the story progresses and how the perception of a reality really affects the paranoia and the thriller aspect of the genre?
I mean, that was one of the reasons why I was quite determined to write it as two first-person perspectives, because I was really interested in the idea of gaslighting, but also that Sarah was unable to trust her own mind. So what we would see or hear in the book was Sarah's version of events and then Daniel's version of events. So you could see the shift in that. So it was almost like, I mean, there's a scene. There's a moment where Sarah is sort of standing in a doorway. You don't know if she's having a nightmare or whether it's actually happening to her, and she's sort of seeing herself. I've had these dreams, you know when you think, did I just astrally project? Because I remember really clearly as a kid kind of coming back into my bedroom and seeing somebody in my bed, and it was me. And I was obviously having a crazy kind of, it was terrifying to me. And that also that feeling of whatever the term is, where you have sleep, where you're awake but your body doesn't wake up. all of
Sleep
it-
paralysis demons.
So I guess I've fed all of those things into the story, which are sort of little personal experiences for me, as well as kind of fear of water. All of those things where you kind of get this kind of panic, I guess, but it's more of a feeling that I just thought I'm going to weave that into her kind of twisted psychology of what's happening to her and what's really happening in the world. So yeah.
Did you plot it out as to like a reality and a perception of reality? How did you plot it?
I plotted it with what Sarah's story was going to be, and obviously, without spoiling it, Daniel is really sort of driving her physical life, and she's interpreting it through her perception of what's happening to her, because the concept is that he's luring her out of retirement to go to Geneva to promote or to endorse this revolutionary, controversial neural implant, and she has stepped away from her career as a Nobel Prize-winning scientist. But with her endorsement, the neural implant could potentially become a success. When she gets to Geneva, she starts to exhibit the first signs of Alzheimer's. And so her endorsement is questioned. It's like she has this agenda. So Daniel's driving that, Sarah's receiving it, which was interesting to sort of see her kind of slowly decline mentally.
Who's listening to it on Audible? Should we do a little Audible jam right here? Reading a chapter of the book or a section?